Hi, Phil Martins here, or perhaps more importantly for this, Phil Hayden Martins. I just thought I'd beam down for a moment to talk to you a little bit about the trip that Mom to some of us, Elizabeth to the rest of us, took down to Newport, Arkansas. We stayed for about a week and had a great time visiting with Dennis and Carol as well as Ransom and Jane. For me, it was fascinating just listening to the four of them reminisce about the growing up years in Newport. Thanks to Carol, we were treated pretty much nonstop to wonderful stories about the Hayden heritage. As many of you know, Carol is pretty much a walking encyclopedia when it comes to such matters. In fact, he was able to trace the Hayden heritage via the Byler line, Byler being the maiden name to Daddy Hayden's mother, all the way back to the 1600s in Europe. He put together a book. Where is that book? I beamed it down to show you. Just a minute. Scotty, the Byler book didn't beam down with me.
We're having trouble with the transporter, Captain.
Scotty, I've got to have it.
But, Captain?
Find a way.
I'll do what I can.
Really, Scotty? Here it is. It contains 6,500 of your closest relatives if you have Hayden blood running through your veins. One of the most interesting stories out of this book involves Daddy Hayden's grandfather. His name was Abram Byler, and for a time he was sheriff of Izard County, Arkansas. Unfortunately, he met his demise when he ran into one Jesse Roper. Take a listen, listeners.
After the sheriff, Byler became the sheriff of the county, and this is some conjecture on my part that he became the sheriff of the county because I believe that he was a sort of a unofficial lawman during the Civil War and pursued the bushwhackers and tried to keep them from preying upon the poor widows of the county whose husbands were off fighting in the Civil War. I believe he had a kind of a reputation for that, and when they did become a new county, he was easily their choice for the first sheriff.
Yeah.
And to begin with, in the beginning, they kept the prisoners in their own house. And his wife cooked the prisoners' meals and whatever. And generally they were not dangerous outlaws. They were just people that they knew, and they kind of kept them in the guest room, you know, and it was kind of a friendly arrangement. They just agreed not to run off, and they didn't shackle them to the bedpost or anything. Some of them, anyhow.
Yeah.
And after several terms as sheriff, well, he was a representative for one term, and then he came back and they elected him sheriff again. I think he filled out that term and was elected to a fourth term, and that was his last term in 1892, early in the year. He and his namesake grandson, his name was Abram Byler also, traveled to Colorado for the occasion of the twins Earl and Pearl being born. And it's in my imagination, I know that he was there when Daddy Hayden was like 3 years old.
Yeah.
And I can remember that Daddy Hayden would set the grandkids on his leg and cross his leg, and he'd do that jot a little horsey down the
Yeah.
down thing. And I can imagine that Sheriff Byler would have probably done something
thing.
like that
That's,
to Hayden, because he was 3 years old when about 3 years old when they were born. And within a month or so after he got back, he was killed by Jesse Roper. Jesse Roper was a sort of a smart aleck teenager, may have been a little bit older than a teenager, but the law in the county, there was a law against carrying guns, and he carried a gun. He kept it in a sock holster down in his leg, and he liked to go around town showing off what a good shot he was to all the rest of the kids. And one of the deputy sheriffs got after him one time about it, and he browbeat the deputy sheriff and kind of chased the deputy sheriff away. So the deputy went to get the sheriff, and he got up a posse, and they went to the house where this Jesse Roper was staying, and Sheriff Byler had a posse, and he told the posse to stay on their horses in the road out in front of the place. And he went up to the door of the house and knocked on the front door and said hello to the house, I believe is what they say that he said. And no one answered. And I believe Jesse Roper was a kind of a bully type person, but I believe he was really afraid of Sheriff Byler because he had hidden in an outbuilding, one of those buildings that had slats between the boards, you know, and he stuck a rifle between those slats in the board, and without even warning him, shot him in the chest area. And the sheriff, of course, fell down, and then it is reported that Jesse Roper fired a couple of shots toward the posse, and I believe I heard one time that maybe one of those shots hit a saddle horn of one of the things. I know a fellow named Clinkenbeard, I think, told me something like that. It was in the posse. Anyhow, he took off running across the field, and they say they didn't catch him. That's what they say. Also, there was a great furor, and there was another feud going on in town which involved Jesse Roper. He had been kind of, they say, brought in to kind of browbeat the other side. And there had been a killing before, but not by Jesse Roper. So, and then after the next sheriff went to pick up what they thought was Jesse Roper, he accidentally killed himself. So really there was really three deaths occurred over that one incident, and possibly four. They don't know what happened to Jesse Roper. Some say that he went to what's this, Clinton, up on
Clinton.
what's the town above Clinton on 60? Is that 65?
Marshall?
Marshall, up in the Marshall area, and became a school teacher. And some say he's buried over there. And one time somebody was going to take me over there and show it to me, but it never happened. I've heard also that the latest is that he went to Alabama or something. and became a fine, upstanding individual or whatever. But personally, since there's such a mystery about it, I think that maybe they might have, citizens might have been so upset that they might have found him hiding in a cave and killed him and just not told anybody. Because they were part of the feud involves people who had a strong connection to the South during the Civil War, and across the border in Missouri was a bunch of people that had a strong connection. They were members of the Grand Old Republic, you know, and they had like they had an organization that met regularly, whatever, and there was some exchanges in the newspaper. I have those where some people on the Arkansas side accused the people on the Missouri side of hiding him or hiding some of his relatives or something, and the people on the north side denied it in print in the newspaper. I forget the details. But years later, even years later, his wife used to get letters because there was still a reward offered. She used to get letters saying they'd tell him where he is if they'd send him some money, you know. Of course, she never did.
Well, as Carol said, they never know exactly what happened to Jesse Roper. There was this wanted poster offering a $1,000 reward, but nobody ever claimed it. If you know anything about the whereabouts of Jesse Roper, let me know. I can't offer you $1,000, but maybe I'll get a Jesse Roper t-shirt printed up for you or something. Anyway, I'm out of time. I gotta go.